in terms of the increasing importance of sharing our history and things that have gone on before, so that you kind of understand some of the responsibility that you have as well. And when we talk about, taking early steps, the fact that you're here today is certainly a step in that direction. One of the important things about that time, and I think in terms of both stories in San Francisco State and at Cornell, problems weren't solved by just one group. The positive final outcome at San Francisco State and at Cornell was because like-minded people got together for support. Like many things, as far as things that have changed in our country, it was initiated on the backs of African Americans, but if not joined by other people, things would not have been accomplished. You see, at San Francisco State, what started out as a battle for black studies became a battle for ethnic studies. And the Third World Liberation Front grew out of that. At San Francisco State, not just students, but the teachers joined in, the community in. At Cornell, it was black and Puerto Rican students. And one of the things that you don't see in the film at Cornell, when you see, there were 50 of us that went into the building. There were 100 of people that came out. And it wasn't just students. It became a national story. They saw that the student side threat, people from the local Ithaca community came in to join us in the building to be part of coming out with us, facing the same danger that we faced at that time. So this whole idea of forming coalitions, and again, particularly at this time in our country, the importance of forming coalitions. There's so many things happening that are once again causing us to be divided. Even people who don't understand that what some of the disenfranchised groups are fighting for is in their best interests as well. And there's a lot of that happening. So, the idea of, again, forming coalitions and possibly expanding these conferences that start off focusing on just a certain group, it's expanded to include other groups as well, because the real change, that's what it's going to take. A roommate in the film, who's Zachary Carter, I'm so proud of, he said at the end of the film that it was a defining moment in his life. And for everybody that participated in this movement, including myself, it was a defining moment in our lives. As a kid, I was a disruptor, and it got me into trouble. I learned as I grew and finally got to college that there's a way of disruption can be positive as well. And so that's important. Dr. Rodriguez shared his own personal story this morning in terms came from, and I have a similar story. I grew up in a public housing project in New York City. I hated school. I didn't do well in school because I hated school. I was bored with school, and I had no sense of what an education could do for me. Other than my mother and my mother's family, I come from a West Indian family, and one of the mantras in the West Indian culture is education, education, education. And my mother would say that all the time, but it really didn't mean much to me at all. I just had no sensibility about that. My life was changed by a couple of things. First of all, I got in a little trouble, not bad trouble, but I got a little bit of trouble. And my mother decided it was time to change my friends in terms of the people that I was hanging out with. And I had a really strong mother that raised myself and my sisters. And when my mother decided to change my friends, I had to change my friends. That was the first positive step in the right direction. Another thing is my older sister had a voracious appetite for reading. So while I hated school and I didn't do well in my classes, she would finish a book and just throw it at me. And I became enamored with the worlds that reading and books would take me outside of my own community. I've been able to see some other things. It also allowed me to do very well on standardized exams. Although I got bad grades, I always did well on standardized exams. My best friend got an opportunity to integrate a boarding school outside New York City. And his parents took me up there on Parents' Weekend for a visit. And he and I, we were average athletes in our neighborhood. There was a lot of kids in the neighborhood in the projects, and we were decent ball players, but we couldn't make our school teams. His parents take me up there Parents' Weekend, he was already the star of the basketball team. So I was like, wow, I could come up there and be all world. That was my interest, not in education, but in athletics. So I got home and I told her, I'd love to go to that. She said, you're interested in education? She takes me over to the church that arranged for my friend to take the entrance exam. I took the entrance exam because I did well on standardized exams. I became the second black student at this boarding school outside of New York City. Almost flunked out my first semester at a 1.8 GPA because the same habits that I had at home in the community, in my public school, I took to this boarding school. A couple of differences. In my neighborhood public school, my average class size was 50 students. I didn't do my homework, teacher said next. I go to the boarding school, my average class size is 9 students. Nowhere to hide. You didn't do your homework. And then my counselor, after I got the 1.8, put me up against the wall. He said, do you understand this opportunity is being presented to you? He said, first of all, do you know what these students of privilege think about you and people who look like you? They think you're here just because you're an athlete, but you've got nothing on the cap. And that's how they think about other people who look like you. And for me, that was the light bulb that went off, that it wasn't just about me. It was my performance was being used to judge a whole lot of other people. And so I began to knuckle down. Long story short, by my senior year, I graduated third in my class and I got into an Ivy League college. Because I finally began to apply myself because I found a reason to perform. And that was very, very important. So do any of you wonder you're just in school because your mother said if you're going to continue to live in this house, you got to go to college? Maybe some of you out there understand the importance of education and where it can take you. And define your dream, your reason, something that drives you in terms of what you want to get out of this experience. But I can attest to the fact of the importance of education and what it can do, not just for you, but for your families, and at some point, hopefully you'll have children, and for your children. And so don't just think about yourself. Think beyond yourself and begin to apply yourself. I don't want to take up a whole lot of time talking because I'd like to hear from you. Your thoughts about the film, how I got to make the film along with Abby Gins. Abby and I did not know each other at Cornell, not at all. We were introduced right here at Santa Monica College by David Burak, who's in the film, who was also a student at Cornell at that time, who knew Abby independently and knew me independently. And he brought Abby here with another one of her films, and he introduced us because he knew that we both wanted to tell the story. I'd written a movie for Universal that they didn't make that was about this, and Abby was making documentary films on social justice, so brought the two of us together. We talked for about an hour, and we decided to embark on making this film together. And it took us 7 years to complete the film. But film continues to resonate. So happy to have worked with Abby on this, and we're talking about some other things as well. So questions for you in terms of the film or experiences or that time